And welcome to our bonus feature segment. Today we're putting up 4 videos on all 3 of our major video hosting sites: twitch.tv/smashamash, youtube.com/smashamash, and bitshoot.com/smashamash. First thing we're looking at is the total Electron content forecast. It'll show you the most likely places for GPS errors. Let's let it play through. So your GPS satellite's located at about 12,500 miles of altitude. If it has to communicate with your handset through a lot of free electrons, such as it typically does around the equator at noon, you'll experience massive GPS errors. Those are the most likely places for those errors. There's a diagram. Feel free to pause the video on this frame. Distances are shown here in miles. Continuing on to the satellite's community dashboard, we don't see any charging hazards at the moment. It's a clear sailing at the moment for satellites. Next, it goes electron flux quite low here. We're seeing some characteristics of coronal hole high-speed streams, and we're expecting a few more in the coming days. Also expecting additional CME strikes today and late in the day tomorrow. We may have already seen one. I think we already did see one. Make sure you check our previous video, which is normally the YouTube exclusive. Today it's on all 3 platforms. Next, the forecast model for relativistic electrons. I was off. I expected it to be a little bit lower. NOAA was on. I was wrong. NOAA was right. Don't be surprised to see slightly lower figures in the coming days because of additional coronal hole high-speed streaming plasma. Here's the 1-year chart of the electron flux, and you can see it is at very low levels. That's the past year from Solon.info. And we'll also look at the ionosphere, the FLARE. In many ways, the bridge between Earth and space. It's located about 300 kilometers of altitude. Here's the vibrational frequency therein. And if you're not familiar with looking at this, don't worry. We will bring up the anomalygram as well so you can see where the anomalies are happening. And we've got some major low-frequency anomalies happening at the moment. Here's the anomalygram. This is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. So some significant low-frequency anomalies there in the Indian Ocean, the South Atlantic. All those red areas, those are low-frequency anomalies. Let's bring up the latest image. There's 11 o'clock Universal Time ionogram. There's 11 o'clock Universal Time anomalygram. Low-frequency anomalies happening in the Middle East, North Africa, and the northern Indian Ocean. Continuing on to a ground-based solar observatory. Let's see what's going on at El Teide, Spain. And what's going on is massive filaments in between the Earth and the Sun remain. Likelihood of major solar flares very high as a result of these 3 sunspot groups. This one right here. This one just rose. That's 3010, and this is 3011. That's Jason Voorhees' sunspot, folks. But don't worry, it's not going to kill you. We may see some CMEs here. We're certainly expecting some major solar flares, as these sunspots have been underperforming. Let's take a look at the latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram as we do daily. So this is a very complex sunspot group. It is beta-gamma class, barely. We've had some umbral migration. Again, make sure you watch our previous videos about that. This group here, beta-gamma class as well. There's the field breakdown of that. Huge number of sunspots, so we're going to see a massive uptick in sunspot number. And last but not least, here's sunspot 3011, which is probably going to be named 3 sunspot groups, because this is 3011, but this might be a different number, and this might be a different number, as those are pretty far apart. So even though it may look like only one active region there, I think that's going to be named 3 sunspot groups. So in any case, that area is very likely to produce major flares. It's right on the limb. It hasn't done so yet. I think it might have produced an M-class flare, but at the moment, these sunspots have been underperforming. Don't be surprised to see X-class flares and M-class flares and additional coronal mass ejections and so on. We'll close out with some moving pictures before we do our meteorology segment, which will appear on all 3 video hosting platforms. It's a Saturday special. additional bonus content for all of you stargazers, weather nerds, science nerds in general. Are you a physics nerd? Are you aware that portions of geology may have to be rewritten as a result of new understanding of what stars are likely made of? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty serious. Anyway, that's the last 2 hours of ionized helium from the GOES 16 SUVI. How about 171 angstroms to close things out from the SDO? Talk about some detail. Just spectacular imagery there. You can see that prominence happening. Minor CME occurring yesterday. Again, we expect some additional CMEs to be arriving late today and late in the day tomorrow, maybe mid to late day tomorrow. So may that solar wind be at your back. Once again, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, as I sign off.